This week's Torah portion introduces us to a very important emotion, an emotional reaction. It's called crying. And it's important for two reasons. The first initial reaction that Joseph has when he sees his brothers is, it says, Vayiten et kolo bibchi. He places or gives over his voice in an outburst of crying. And the second time that he cries is when he sees his brother Benjamin. Benjamin comes down to Mitzrayim, comes down to Egypt, and again, Yosef reacts by crying. Why is this so important? It's important for two reasons. Number one, the implication, where the Torah depicts and tells us explicitly that Yosef's reaction is to cry, implies that prior to this, Yosef did not cry. How exactly can it be that for 22 years, Yosef, who is so close to his father, who has and enjoys a special relationship with his father, and did have at least some type of familial connection? Perhaps there was hatred between himself and his brothers, but nonetheless, there is a family that he is no longer a part of for 22 years. And it seems that he does not cry during this period of time. The Rashar Hirsch explains that during this period of time, Yosef was preoccupied with many things, including being enslaved. But certainly for the last few years, he is preoccupied with saving the economy of Egypt. And for that reason, because he busybodies himself and he immerses himself in the finances and the financial safekeepings of the Egyptian economy, he is able to restrain himself from crying. But the Torah reveals to us that ultimately, crying, emotions, familial connections catch up with a person. There is only so long that a person can restrain and refrain from expressing their deep emotional connection to the people around them, particularly those in their family. And so eventually when the brothers come down to Mitzrayim, it says, when Yosef sees them, Vayiten et kolo bibchi. That's a very strange vernacular, a very strange usage. Joseph gives over his voice to crying. What does it mean he gives it over? And the answer is, he gives himself up to crying. He lends himself to crying. He purges his emotions by crying. All these years I held back. Now I see my brothers and I am unable to restrain myself from expressing and divulging that emotion that I feel for them, that true, deep brotherly love that exists. And so Joseph gives himself over to crying, because that connection between our familial relatives is so strong that it cannot be suppressed. It can be suppressed perhaps for a short period of time, but ultimately it's revealed, and it is long-lasting, and certainly it becomes explicitly obvious. And so we learn from here two things. Number one, when it comes to familial relatives and relations, there is no obstruction to the strong connection that we have with them. We may be able to refrain and restrain ourselves or put on a show or a different face for a short period of time. But ultimately, the connection that exists, the blood relationship that we have with those around us and our families is so strong it cannot be overcome. And the same thing that we learned from this week's Torah portion, from Yosef's outburst of crying, is that there's nothing wrong with crying. Crying is an emotion. It's healthy. It demonstrates our love. It demonstrates our sadness at times. I cry many times, but many times I feel that I am purged, and I feel good, strangely, after I let go and after I allow that crying to emerge and to express itself. These are two very important lessons that we learn from this week's Torah portion from Yosef. It's important for us to incorporate them, appreciate the family, relatives, the people that we have around us, love them, understand the connection and how strong it is. And we should also never be afraid. We never need to suppress our emotions, but rather express them and share them with others. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you once again for joining us. Please remember to consider subscribing to the page below and send me your comments. I will get back to you. Have a great day.